Imagine climbing over 46,000 feet, over 600 miles, on a bicycle that weighs 10 pounds more than the average road bicycle, and then taking the victory in a three-stage double-century road race. On today's episode, we'll be hearing all about the epic journey of one recumbent rider who, against all odds, went on to win the 2016 California Triple Crown Series stage race, which included the Devil Mountain Double Century, the Central Coast Double Century, and the White Mountain Double Century. In part 3 of 3, we'll learn all about the White Mountain Double Century, the third stage race in the series. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. How did the stage race end? So you ended up breaking your wrist. That changed your plans, and I guess it forced you to reconsider doing the White Mountain Double, which was the last of 3 races in the stage race. So you ended up doing that. How did that kind of play out, and how did you end up regaining 20 to 30 minutes on Derek in order to take the victory there in that stage race that year?
Yeah, so I don't think I actually decided to do the White Mountain Double. Like I didn't break my race, decide I wasn't going to be able to do the 24-hour race because of the recovery time, and then immediately decide, hey, I'm going to go do the White Mountain stage race. I think at that point, like I was so bummed out about my broken wrist that I wasn't even looking at anything. And there was some chatter on the social media and stuff, and there was some negativity being tossed around based, related to my accomplishment with those first 2 stages, and even I want to say I did the Heartbreak Double Century sometime after the Central Coast Double Century,
Mm-hmm.
and I had won that one as well. So it further concreted my ability to be able to win these things. Now that race wasn't as highly contested because it wasn't a stage race; it was just one of the other double centuries. So it didn't have nearly as much competition, but it did have Joel Sutherland in it, and that guy never takes it easy. And so I was able to beat Joel in that race. So it was still a good accomplishment. But then I think just after that race is when I broke my wrist. And there was some negativity floating around on the social media about recumbents in the racing. And just a lot of people were kind of crapping on, my ability and kind of chalking everything up to, the bike being being unfair. And the thing is you had asked me earlier, and I kind of brushed over it, on how hard it was to learn to ride the bike. And I know Cruise Bike hates when I say this because it scares people away, and I know it's caused you to pause, on your desires to actually try the thing out. But
Yeah.
it was extremely hard for me to learn how to ride, and it was one of those things that surprised me because me being as accomplished as I am on anything 2-wheel, I just, before I received the bike, there was no question in my mind I was going to be able to ride it, and I was going to be able to ride it fast. But when I actually got the bike, my first week on the bike, it really made me question if I had made a mistake and, inserted my foot into my mouth by promising them that I could ride the thing and race it in, a world-class event, 6 weeks later. And so it did take me a lot longer to learn than I had originally planned or expected. But, as everybody has seen in the results, I can ride it now as fast, or if not faster than most people can ride a standard bike. But I really think that's because of the type of person I am. And it's kind of a double-edged sword. I want to promote the bike for being as comfortable and being as capable as possible. But at the same time, I want people to kind of respect how much work I actually put into it, and how much, and how difficult it is to actually descend at those speeds. Not because it's a recumbent, simply because it's just hard to descend anything at those speeds.
Yeah.
And
Jason, I now that I've ridden with you for a number of years, I don't know how many now, at least 4, if not going on 5. And I've ridden with you both in training and on double centuries, both on your recumbent and your upright Trek bicycle. And so I can attest to just your your sheer and raw strength and power, both physically and mentally, and you're a beast even on the trek upright. And I also know on the tandem that it simply gives you, it's the right tool for the right user, because with your background in professional motorcycle racing, you're able to just fly down those hills. And even if somebody like myself had access to that recumbent, I wouldn't be able to fly down any faster, I think, than I currently do on my upright, because I lack the same technical abilities that you have and the confidence that you've developed through the years. Now, I know there was a lot of negativity, but I could imagine for cruise bikes and for other recumbent riders, I mean, was there any positive feedback, social media or otherwise,
Oh,
in you claiming all those victories with the recumbent?
the recumbent forums. I was pretty active on the recumbent forums back then, and I still am to this day,
Mm,
simply because I am kind of seen as an ambassador of the cruise bike and the recumbent brand.
right.
Um, and so I believe there was. And it's funny because it's funny and a little bit sad that
Yeah.
the recumbent community as a whole isn't as united as you would hope. There
Mm,
actually is a bit of a division between the standard recumbents, which are rear wheel drive, and the front wheel drive recumbents, which are mainly cruise bike, because the cruise bike is an odd bike being front wheel drive, and some standard recumbent riders um, struggled to learn the recumbent just like I did, and they gave up on it too soon, and so they went back to their standard recumbents, and they deemed the cruise bike front wheel drive recumbent design as a flawed design. They called it unstable
interesting.
or whatnot. So there actually is a bit of a division in the recumbent community. So I would say 98% of the response in the recumbent social media and the community was positive. There were still like some of those people that had tried a cruise bike in the past and didn't give it enough time to get used to it, or just simply didn't like it, and
Mhm.
they immediately jumped back to their other bike. They would constantly kind of just crap on the accomplishments and saying, blah, 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 and they would just never accept it. It was almost like they were, standard road bike riders. And it's like, you guys realize you're part of the same community of recumbent racers. How
Mm,
are we supposed to change the overview, that standard bikes see us, if we can't even unite ourselves?
mm,
But for the most part, everybody was very supportive. Even in the double century field, everybody was extremely supportive.
mm,
And as you would expect them to be, because they are a very welcoming family. Only a very small percentage of the ultra endurance riders race it with that competitive nature. Most of them are just out there for the self improvement
mm.
and the experience of of the race itself, with the family atmosphere. So
Exactly.
I believe it was probably the recumbent forum that was following the stage race, and they were the ones, like, in the previous like 2 or 3 weeks to the White Mountain Double. They convinced me to get back out on the road and off the online training,
Oh,
and
okay.
they told me, you should go do this. Since you can't do the mountain bike race, at least go do the third stage race, and take it to these guys and show them, that you actually can, win on a mountainous course and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it was kind of one of the asterisks, because I didn't win the Devil Mountain Double, but I won the Central Coast Double, which has about 5,000 feet less climbing.
Hmm.
And so there was an asterisk next to the accomplishment of winning the Central Coast, like, oh, but would he have won it if there had been more climbing like the DMD? It's like, well, we don't know, because it doesn't have as much climbing as the DMD. So then I think the White Mountain Double is a little bit harder than the Central Coast Double. I think it has like another 2,000 feet of climbing, but it's a very different course layout. So I decided to do the White Mountain Double. Uh, Probably 20%, maybe 30% out of spite, which is kind of the best state of mind you could have me in,
Hmm.
because if there's anything I like more, if there's nothing I like more than a little bit of sweet revenge.
Right.
And if I can bring out the salty tears of my competitors, that's just a little extra motivation. And
So for a bit of context, so you did the White Mountain Double. your wrist was still broken or damaged and not fully recovered. Is that correct?
Um, I do not remember the extent of the damage at that time period, but I can say with certainty that it didn't affect the race. It
I
wouldn't have
see. Okay.
handicapped me.
You got to the
I
start
know.
line there in Bishop, California, there in the Eastern Sierras, and you were starting. I guess Derek Stedman was there at the starting line as well. Um, I mean, was there any words exchanged at that point? Did he? I mean, just amongst
No,
chatter and
no. Actually, there was. I kind of stayed really low key and incognito. And I'm going to bring up something that you had mentioned earlier about my reconnaissance of the courses and
Mhm.
how I approach certain things. So since I was taking now this third stage race, I took the second stage race more serious than I took the first one, and now I'm taking this third stage race more serious than the second. Because the first I just wanted to finish. The
Right.
second I wanted to see if I could win.
Mhm.
Now this third race I wanted to see if I could win by over 30 minutes and clinch that overall because he had I had in second place overall, I had like a 25 or a 30-minute deficit that I would need to make up, which is a lot of time to make up, especially when the guy in second position knows that all they have to do is keep you less than 30 minutes, ahead of him. And
Oh,
that's a
so
pretty
that
that's a
was
pretty
yeah,
solid handicap to go into a race with. But
definitely.
because the major climb on White Mountain Double is up White Mountain, and I want to say it's a 6,000-foot climb. I think it starts at 4 and ends at 10,000.
Mm.
It was the biggest climb I had ever done, and
Mhm.
it's the biggest climb it's the biggest climb I've ever done up to that point and since then. And because I wasn't sure how steep the climb is, I wasn't sure how to pace myself up the climb. If there was going to be, because when you look at a climb profile, you see how much it climbs over a certain distance,
Mhm.
but you don't know, how much undulation is in the climb. If the climb is a one set percentage the entire way, which they never are, well, that would be easiest because an 8% climb, that's 8% the entire time. That's doable. But when you have a 6,000-foot 8% climb, that
Mhm.
has a few downhills in it, well, then you have, or has some flat areas in it, well, then the whole thing's not at 8%. There's going to be some 15% spots, and there's going to be some 10% spots.
Mhm.
There's going to be some 0% spots. And it was really important to me because when you're on a standard bike, you have the option of two body positions in the saddle and out of the saddle, and
Mm.
it changes your muscle groups and it changes your cadence and stuff, and you can use that to your advantage to go back and forth between those two positions and give your body rest and
Mhm.
recover between those two positions. So as you're climbing up a really steep climb and it gets really it hits a really steep part for like 100 feet. Well, a lot of people, instead of downshifting a bunch of gears, they'll just stand out of the saddle, that kind
Mm.
of power up that about the same effort but with a different lower cadence,
Mhm.
and then as soon as it flattens back out, you'll then sit back down, shift it down a couple gears, and spin it out, and you'll change that cadence and that muscle group, and it overall you'll be less tired than if you just try to muscle through it the same in the saddle position. But when
Mm.
you're on the recumbent, you don't have that option to change positions. You're locked into that one position the entire time. So if your muscles start to overheat, you don't have the option of standing up and changing your muscle group. Your only option is to slow down.
Mhm.
And if you try to slow down when it gets steep, well, then you really start to go slow. So I needed to know, like, how steep is this climb? Am I going to be spinning my front wheel because I'm hitting all kinds of, super high percentages? Do I need to save extra power for those areas so I could, surge up them faster and get through them quicker
Right.
without, lingering there? So what I did is that I drove down the previous day and I
Mm.
actually did the entire climb the day before,
You wrote
which,
it in your recumbent.
yeah, I rode it in the recumbent. I rode up the entire 6,000-foot mountain, and then even
Uh,
better, I got to descend the entire 6,000-foot mountain, and that was the most fun I had had ever on a road bicycle coming down a mountain. That's why it's my number one favorite descent, because it
I see.
had so many super high speed sections.
Mhm.
It had some really tight switchbacks where you had to like really get hard on the brakes, and then even better is because in the race itself, you come down the White Mountain part, but
Mhm.
it's kind of a Y. So you climb up one part and you climb up the next part, and you come down that same part. But before you continue down that first part that you climbed, you actually turn left and you go down a different part. So you don't actually get to descend the first half of the White Mountain climb in the race. But since I was pre-riding the course, I actually got to descend that part. And it was really trippy because it has a lot of like steep undulations in the road, a lot of like whoop-de-doos. And they were steep whoop-de-doos enough to where when I was doing 50 miles an hour, I dropped down into one of them, and as it rose over the crest, it rose over the crest and started falling away on the other side so steeply that the bike actually, it didn't jump off the road. It actually just floated slowly off the road. Wow. And I realized
oh my goodness.
I realized like half a second after I left the road that I couldn't feel the road vibrations. I'm like, holy shit, I'm in the air right now.
Oh, wow.
And because it's not a jump and it was just a falling away of the road, I slowly came back into contact with the road. And I thought to myself, oh, that was so scary. That was so fun. I want to go do that again.
Oh man. Jeez,
so I did. So I finished my pre-ride without killing myself.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
I didn't push too hard in the climb, but you still have to push to get up a 6,000 foot mountain. So did I burn myself out? I don't know. Was it worth it? Yes, totally. The chance to be able to descend that mountain. I know a few of the competitors had their friends drive them to the top, and they practiced the descent only. I was the only person who actually thought to ride up the mountain, because what I needed to really get my head around was how hard the climb was going to be. When it comes to the descent, I can usually figure that out on the fly. But so in the start of the race, so I kept my appearance like low key. I kind of wanted to give myself the opportunity to where if I could surprise any of the guys that were salty about me being in the event, I wanted them to not know I was there until like I rolled up to the start line. So I don't know how effective that was. It was just kind of one of those funny little tricks I was going to play. So come
the
race
beginning
morning,
of the course, so from the start in Bishop, it's mostly flat, right? Until you get to White Mountain.
It's actually probably like a 1% downgrade for like the first 20 miles. So it's like if there was ever a section of the course that was designed around the advantages of the recumbent, it was that section. But so the start of the course, you go through probably half a dozen city lights before you leave the city, and then you start with like a 20-minute just open road until you make a hard 90-degree left, and you start climbing up the mountain. And we're starting before sunrise, so it's pitch black. All you can see is the headlights of the bicycles behind you. Excuse me, let me see if I can sneeze. Nope. And I remember I kind of just was in the pack of riders, just kind of cruising through the lights, because the last thing I wanted to do was start the event, show my hand by trying to go out too fast, and then get stuck at a red light, and then have everybody catch me and be alerted to shit, I'm there, and he's going to go fast. So I kind of just was like mid pack or whatever in the event until we crossed that final stoplight. And once we crossed that final stoplight, that threshold that could possibly slow me down, I went flying past everybody at like 30 miles an hour. It was a good like solid not sprint effort, but it was a very solid effort. And the idea was to break away. It was a breakaway effort like you would see in any road race. And so, I got the bike up to like 300 watts for like the first 2 minutes, which is not the way you want to start a double century. But that was the strategy. And the idea was to get out in front and force the pack behind me to work together and force them to, kind of fight among themselves, because it's easy to organize 5 or 6 people to create a pace line if you know that that's what the strategy is supposed to be. But trying to get 5 or 6 people in a group of 60 to do that, it's not that easy, because everybody wants somebody else to pull through, and all of a sudden somebody's not pulling their weight, then everybody wants to slow back down. And that's kind of the whole strategy behind road racing. And I kind of wanted them,
and especially that early on in a double century. I mean, we're talking about the first 20 or so miles. in a 200-mile difficult climbing event.
Yeah, so I never really did get the full story of how it played out behind me,
Uh-huh.
but all I could see was just the lights lingering behind me, and you don't have any depth perception when you're looking in your little tiny cycling mirror, so you can't tell if they're 50 feet behind you
Hmm.
or if they're half a mile behind you. It's really hard to tell. All you can see is just this big old mass of bicycle lights flashing behind you.
Yeah.
And so when I got to that left-hand turn, I made the left-hand turn. I could take like a look over my shoulder and kind of see they were out there, but I couldn't tell how far behind. And I remember looking at my Garmin, and so I made the turn at however many minutes and however many seconds, and I had exactly a 90-second lead after the first 20 or so miles before they made that left-hand turn. Since it was a nice 90-degree turn, it was easy to tell exactly when they made the turn. So I was like, oh, well, I was kind of hoping for like 5 minutes, but 90
Yeah.
seconds, I guess, is all I'm going to get. And I'm starting up, what's essentially like a 2.5 hour climb. So if you figure Derek made 10 minutes on me on Central Coast Double on that 1 hour climb, then
Right.
he's going to make at least that much on this 2 hour climb. And so, I got into the climb, started climbing, and immediately you could tell that the lights behind me were starting to separate on their way up the climb, which is really a cool view because as soon as you make like a sharp U-turn on a climb and
Yeah.
it's still dark and you could see the big string of cycling lights behind you
Yeah.
coming up through the mountain switchbacks and stuff, that's always a really cool sight to see. And it's the
That
same
is.
when you're doing the ultra marathons like the Western states and you're starting at like 4 a.m., you
Mhm.
can look back down the mountain. You can see all the runners with their headlights blinking behind you. And it's just this big string, this big old snake of lights. But so Derek went flying by me. I think I told him good luck or something as he went by. I don't even think he gave me a response. Either he didn't hear
Yeah.
me or maybe he was just being that extra serious. But I don't think I ever heard a response from him. He just continued to just pull away from me. I was like, oh, there he goes.
Right.
And I just knew I had to set my pace to whatever it was, and the goal of the plan was to get up and down the mountain and try to minimize as much damage as I could, catch him in the flat because the course is really flat. It has that 6,000 foot climb, which is 1/3 of the elevation. Then
Mm.
has a huge long section across the desert, and then it's got some 1,000-foot climbs mixed in here and there. But for the most part, it's a lot of just really easy open roads.
Mm.
And so I thought, get up the mountain, I'm going to lose, 10, 15 minutes. I'll probably make up like 2 or 3 minutes on the descent.
Hmm.
And then I just have to make up that extra time on the flat ground. And then in the second half of the course, I have to be able to pull away 30 minutes, which is pretty crazy because
Yeah, that's a lot.
you're starting the race, you're starting, the 50th mile point of your race, 20 minutes down. And you
Right.
already had a 30-minute deficit at the beginning. So it's like, how do you make up 50 minutes in
Wow.
only the second 150 miles? And then if you don't pass the guy into the 100-mile mark, it's like
Right.
now you have only 100 miles to make up 30 minutes, which is just, it's crazy. But so he had flew past me on the climb. One or two other people had caught and passed me on the climb, but they weren't able to continue to pull away. Like I caught and passed them back.
Hmm.
So even though I say that I don't climb as fast on the Vendetta as I do on my standard bike, there
Mhm.
is still only a very few number of people that could actually outclimb me on it. Like in the double centuries, if you were to look at a Strava segment on that day of that course,
Mhm.
there might be one or two people that can outclimb me on a 1 hour climb, even though I'm in the recumbent. And that's because, those are really fast racers. For the majority, of your regular, your standard double century riders, are competitive. They only climb about as fast as I do on the Vendetta. And
Right.
that just goes to show, how well it is. It's a recumbent, and yeah, it is 7 to 10 pounds heavier, but it doesn't climb any worse because it's
Mm.
a recumbent. It
Mhm.
climbs just as well as any other 7 to 10 pound heavier road bike would climb. It's
Mm.
only a weight disadvantage. It's not a design disadvantage. And
Right.
so got up the climb, and I remember when Derek flew past me as he was descending, I remember taking note of what turn that he had passed me in.
Mm.
So, and then I remember the time that I had on my clock. So whatever, so like say it was 3 hours and 53 minutes. If I
Mm.
got back to that point at 4 hours even, he would have a 7 minute advantage. So I remembered the turn, I remember the time. I got up to the top of the climb, and I kind of fumbled around with my trying to get my powder into my bottles. I remember dropping my lens from my helmet
Oh no.
on the floor because I was kind of fumbling around up there because I was kind of like in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I remember getting back down to that turn, and he had a 9 minute lead on me, which is a lot closer of a margin than I originally thought it would be. I
Yeah.
did a really well to pace myself up the climb. I thought, I might have burnt myself out a little. I might have burnt a few too many matches.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it was I want to say it was a 9 minute or a 9 minute gap. So he had made up a little over 10 minutes when you consider that I started a minute and a half ahead of him. And then I believe looking at the data afterwards, I only made up like maybe a minute on the downhill all the way back down. So, like I was telling you, I'll trade having a 9 minute advantage on the climb for a 1 minute advantage on the downhill any day of the week,
Right.
if you gave me that option.
And I'd
But,
imagine Derek must be a pretty savvy descender himself, from what seems like. I mean, that's a very long descent, and for him to be able to keep quite a bit of his advantage, I guess goes to show that he was doing pretty good going down there himself.
no, he's definitely well above average road bike descender,
Hmm.
based on what I've seen. And and that's what I expect. So the got down into the valley, and I remember I filled up at the top of the mountain. You ride across the valley, you do a small climb. I bypassed that aid station because I was planning on going to the next aid station. So I was planning on going, I think, about 60 miles
Hmm.
between the top of the mountain to the next aid station, because if you figure 16 of that miles are only going to take you 10 minutes because of the descent, then you can kind of cut that distance out.
Hmm.
So I figured, 2 hours to get to that, 2 hours to do like the next 60 or so miles. And then I could get to the refilling station. I think it's like mile, I don't know, 90 or 100 or something like that. I would have
Hmm.
to look up the profile of the course to know for sure. But so I skipped the 1A station. I came into and I had just passed him. I had passed Derek, I want to say like 2 or 3 miles before um, the planned stop at the next town, which is like a little tiny strip
Hmm.
town. And I remember when
And
I
this
had,
was about mile 100, you said?
I want to give or take about a mile 100. It was at least
Mhm.
100, probably 100 to 110. I don't remember the specifics,
So
but
then at this point, you caught up to him. Now you only have 100 miles to now make up that difference in terms of the time that advantage he had on you from the first two races.
yeah. So
Mm.
with 100 miles remaining in the course, I had to open up close to a 30-minute lead. And
Wow.
I remember when I passed him, I was approaching him slowly, and he could. I know he saw me coming
Mm.
because I remember I had seen him looking back when I was within 100 yards.
Hmm.
And I made sure that when I did actually pass him, I made sure to surge past him with a good amount of speed. And I could see him in my ear, in my mirror, stand
Mm.
up and try to get behind me, but I kept the power on until he sat back down and gave up. I wasn't going to let him just latch on.
Mm.
And so he conceded to he was going to have to run his own pace, and he was
Yeah.
going to have to just keep me within sight. And I was dedicated to just keep going. So I roll into the next town, and there's people everywhere. And so I think, okay, aid station's got to be around here somewhere. There's it's like it's a little tiny town in the middle of nowhere,
Mm.
but there's like outdoor strip mall where they have
Right.
tables set up with antiques, and it's like a little tourist trap. And I
Yeah.
don't know why you would drive out to the middle of the desert to buy antiques, but apparently there was enough people to do it that there was enough confusion going on to where I couldn't find the aid station. I had to slow down to 12 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour, sit up, and I'm looking on both sides of the road for anything that resembles an aid station. I'm doing what anybody in a double century race would look for. I'm
Hmm.
looking for that person to stand out at the side of the road and wave you in.
Hmm.
I was like, I'm looking for that person to wave their hands like, we're over here, because,
Mm.
how many bicycle racers are you going to see going through the middle of the desert? Anybody on a
Yeah.
bicycle is going to be part of your event.
Yeah.
So, as an aid station person, your job should be to look for the first bicycle that you see and wave them towards you, especially when you see that there's a bunch of other people around you doing other stuff. So, of course, the bicycle racer is going to be confused, especially when you don't have like a big sign or anything. So, long story short, I missed the aid station. I went
Oh
through the
no.
entire town at way slower speeds than I would have liked to have gone,
Yeah.
and never found everybody. And I remember getting to the very end of the town, slowing down to like almost 10 miles an hour, looked behind me, which is hard to do on the recumbent,
Right.
and I didn't see anybody waving me down. And I'm just like, what the fuck? What just happened?
Yeah.
And I'm out of water, because I remember finishing my water like 10 miles before I got to the aid station, knowing that I was going to get to refill.
Right.
It's already like 90 degrees outside.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, crap. Okay, well, screw it. Just pick the pace back up. I don't want Derek to catch me.
Right.
So I get going, and so I know to myself, because I'm looking at my little profile sheet that I printed out that tells me where all the climbs are, and it tells me where all the aid stations are at the miles. And it's like, all right, I got another, I think, 18 miles to the next aid station. So, 45 minutes. I can make it another 45 minutes. I know it's hot. I know I'm thirsty, but I'm not going to die from 45 minutes of, not having water, which at this
Mm.
point is probably about an hour. And the funny thing is after I cruised through the city, the person who was sitting in the back of their truck with the water jug for the aid station saw
Mm.
me go by and thought to themselves, oh, he didn't stop. You know what? Maybe I should go out to the edge of the road and wave them down.
Right.
So she actually did wave down Derek. So Derek was able to get water. I didn't get water. So then I get 18 miles to the next aid station. I do this one extra climb, or this next climb, and I remember I'm just baking the sun. I've got the worst case of cotton mouth. I
Oh
get to
my
the
goodness.
I get to the intersection where the water stop's supposed to be. No water stop.
Oh no.
Nothing. And I'm just like, oh my God. So then I'm looking at my profile sheet, and I got this long climb of 2,000 feet. And it's like, I want to say 15 or so miles to the next intersection where there's supposed to be the famous smoothie stop.
Mm.
And I'm like, all right, well, I got no choice. I got to just keep going until I find water out in the middle of the goddamn desert at one
Oh my
point.
gosh.
So I just do the next climb, and I'm just like, now I'm trying to fight off cramping. I'm so
Oh no.
dehydrated. I'm seriously lacking on nutrition, because, as you know, all my nutrition is in my drink.
Right.
So it's not like I can just take in the dry powder. That's never going to work. So if I don't have water to mix my powder, and now I'm low on calories, and I'm
Right.
still trying to maintain, whatever I can as a race pace. So I'm having to mentally recalculate how hard I can go, because if I keep missing aid stations at this pace, I'm eventually going to fall apart. So it's just like, do I slow down in expectation that I might not even get the next aid station, or do I keep going, at this pace, hoping that I get to the next aid station and
Mm.
there'll actually be somebody there, because that's already 2 aid stations that I've missed.
Right.
And
Now, were you afraid at any point in missing all of these? And for those who don't know the course, I mean, it very much feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, and in a very hot middle of nowhere. So, was there ever the thought of
I'm off course.
fear? No, well, not even off course, but the fear of not having water, or just, I mean, literally even just dropping dead because you've missed every water stop, and you're gonna keep missing them.
No, because there was never any fear of actually being in danger for lack of water.
Uh-huh.
Only the anger for compromising my racing ability.
I see.
Um, the Because even being in the middle of the desert, there's still going to be a car that passes you, once every 10-15 minutes. And if you were ever
Sure.
in serious danger, you could always flag somebody down, even if
Mm.
they aren't related to the race, and have them give you a hand. You never know. You might have that random guy in a Toyota Camry swing by and give you some mini donuts and some water in the middle of some canyon somewhere. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I remember I got to the next climb, and now I'm going on, I want to say, 2 hours without water.
Hmm.
And I roll into the smoothie stop, and unfortunately, it's like on some gravel turnout
Uh,
that's like this really deep gravel, so I can't even ride through it. So like as soon as I drop into the thing, I lose all ability to pedal to this thing. So I have to hop out and I'm like trying to run up to the aid station, which is uphill in the gravel,
Oh
kind
my
of a repeat
goodness.
of the damn church stop from the previous event. And
Yeah.
I'm already super salty because
Yeah.
I'm dehydrated and I'm upset about the missing aid stations, and I'm a little pissed off inside, but I'm
Mhm.
trying to keep it internally because
Mhm.
um, I
Uh,
don't want I don't want the aid station people to feel like threatened. I get into the aid station, and my only concern is getting water. I don't care about anything else in the aid station. I just want water.
mm,
But because the famous smoothie stop is kind of like the famous lunch stop behind the church of the previous event,
mm,
and the aid station crew is geared there to make your stay there as comfortable as possible. They're not
right.
thinking get this guy in and out as fast as possible. They're thinking, show this guy, as much hospitality as we can.
Right.
And so I was like, I just need some water. And they're like, do you want a smoothie or anything? No, no, no. I just need some water. I was
Mm,
like, well, can you guys fill this up for me? They're like, no, we can't fill up your bottles. It's like, what? It's like, how do I get water? Well, you have to fill them up yourself. I'm like, you can't help me fill up my bottles. I have to fill them up myself. Yeah,
yeah.
but would you like a smoothie? No, I don't want a smoothie. I just want somebody to help me throw some water in these bottles. And it's like,
Yeah.
what do you not understand? And I know they didn't mean anything by it, but I was so pissed off at missing the previous two aid stations. I just wanted to tackle somebody to the ground and beat him up to make myself feel better. I was just so
Right.
upset at that point.
Yeah.
And so finally, and they could see it. They could see it in my eyes, even though my eyes are
Mm,
behind some sunglasses. They could tell that I was not happy, and they're probably just wondering to themselves, "Why is this guy so pissed off?"
right.
And
Yeah, they would probably think you're one of those racers that take it too seriously, right?
yeah, exactly. And so I finally, I work my way to the back of the aid station where they have the water on the table, and I'm like fumbling around trying to get my powder in there, and finally one of the younger volunteers says, "Would you like a hand?" I was like, "Oh, please, thank you." And so she helped me fill the bottles. I got my water in there, and then I remember like drinking half of a bottle before I even put the powder in of just pure water, and then throwing the powder in there. And then the good news was the next aid station I was going to get to was this exact same aid station because we were going to do like a 20-mile loop out and over this mountain and
Mm,
then come back to this next aid station. So at least I knew that in 20 miles I was definitely going to find an aid station, assuming they didn't all pack up and leave in the 20 miles that I was out
right.
pedaling.
Right. Right.
So as soon as I left the aid station, I think I remember grabbing like a Nutri-Grain bar or some Fig Newtons or something from the aid station, which is really uncommon for me. But
Mm,
because I had gone for so long without water or calories, I
mhm.
figure I needed some extra calories in my system to catch up. So as soon as I left the aid station, I was just trying to eat the Fig Newtons, and then I think I drank an entire bottle of Accelerate within like the first 2 miles of leaving the aid station, because I
Wow.
figure the remaining second bottle would be enough to get me through the 20-mile loop back to them so I could fill up again. And this whole time I'm leaving the aid station, I'm like, or the first 2 miles I'm leaving the aid station, I'm like looking right over my shoulder out across the valley, trying to spot to see if Derek is coming down the hill, because you could
Oh yeah.
see you could see probably 6 miles behind you, but it's really kind of difficult to see out that far.
Mhm.
And I wasn't sure, I couldn't be sure if I didn't see him or not, or if, maybe I missed him. And so it was like, all right, well, I'm back in the race. I have my hydration. I'll be able to get more hydration when I get back to that stop. So, you know,
Mhm.
I should be able to be good for the remainder of the race. So I do the loop, and then I think I stop at the smoothie station again and refill. You know what? You know what? Now that I think about it, I'd have to look at the data. I think I decided to skip the smoothie aid station because of the gravel situation.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think I planned on skipping the smoothie aid station and actually going the extra 15, 20 miles to the next town and hitting that aid station,
Wow.
which ends up
Okay.
which ends up biting me in the ass because when I get into that town,
Uh-huh.
there's no aid station.
Oh no. The
There's
saga
that's
continues.
that's the third aid station that I'm missing,
Wow.
and apparently they were there, set up behind the elementary school,
Mhm.
but they didn't have any signage and they didn't have anybody out there to tell you need to turn in this driveway and we're behind this building.
Mm.
And what's crazy about that town is completely opposite of the first little tiny strip mall town
Mhm.
where there was all kinds of people. In this last town, it was completely deserted, not a soul in sight, no cars on the street. It was like a ghost town, like you see in a movie. There
Mm.
was nothing there. And I was just like, wow, this is kind of eerie. There's supposed to be an aid station here somewhere, but I don't see
Yeah.
anything.
Right.
And so I'm like, now I'm out of water again. And I was just like, crap. So now I'm out of water. I think somewhere just before that or somewhere after that, there's an agricultural stop.
Uh-huh.
Um, and somebody had poured out like a soda. I don't think there was anybody there. It was closed, but somebody had poured out like a soda or something outside the back of like the booth,
Uh-huh.
and there was all kinds of those like hornets, like
Oh,
eating the sugar of the soda. So
yeah.
when I rode through there, the hornets got all disrupted, and they all started swarming around me. So I remember like hitting the
Oh,
pedals really
yeah.
hard to like surge away from them. And it's when I did that, all of a
Jeez.
sudden, it brought on this like extreme case of hot foot. So like I had to actually unclip from the pedals and coast for like a good solid 2 minutes to try to let my feet like cool down. The hot foot was so bad I could barely put any pressure on the pedals. And it was just the sun was baking. It was so damn hot. There was a headwind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I think I got to the town. There was no aid station. Now I'm like suffering from dehydration again. We're going through the middle of just this agricultural area. So there's nothing but green fields on either side of you with sprinklers going, and you're just baking in the sun,
Oh my
and the
God.
water is just it's not hitting you. And
Right.
so like I'm going, and now I'm like, crap. There's only one water stop left. I have like 35 miles to go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm dying. I'm so tired. I'm so thirsty. This
Right.
sucks. I'm like looking at the small like ranch houses that I'm passing,
Uh-huh.
trying to see if I could see one of them with like a hose out front. Like if I were able to spot like a guaranteed source of water out front that I could quickly get to without losing too much time, I
Yeah.
would have dove into the driveway and just gotten it right out of the hose. But I could never see clearly a guaranteed solution for water. I'm like, crap. All right, well, maybe there'll be somebody at this last water stop. So then I get to this last water stop, which is like, it's not in a town. It's not at an intersection or anything. It's just in the middle of this road, which looks like it might be around like some houses or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm getting up to this point. Like I see something, I'm like, I bet you it's supposed to be off in that turnoff off to the right, but there's nobody there. I'm like
Oh
coming up
wow.
to, I'm a mile away, and I'm coming up to, I'm like, there's nobody there. I can't believe
Yeah.
this. I'm going to miss 4 aid stations this entire race. I can't believe this. And as I get about 100 yards from the turnout, a van pulls up and stops and opens up the back of the van, and you can see it's full of aid station supplies. They were just
Ah.
getting there. And so then I pull up and, well, do you got any water? And he's kind of like, he's like nonchalantly like going about his business. Yeah. Hang on. I get to get this stuff. I'm like, no. You don't understand. I just need to get some water right now so I can keep going, because it's kind of like a race situation.
Hmm.
I don't know where the water's at. And so I'm like helping him pull stuff. I'm helping him unload the van because I
Oh my
need water.
goodness.
So I'm helping him unload the van, and I'm like opening up the ice chest as I'm doing this. Oh, this
Yeah.
has exactly what I need. So like, this has a Coke. I'll take a Coke real quick.
Right.
All
Right.
right, I
Right.
need some water. Let's pour some water in there. At this time, Jim, the race director, pulls up in his car because he's been driving the course. And
Ah.
like he's got this happy-go-lucky attitude. Oh, Jason, how's the race going? Are you enjoying it? And I just look at him, and if he could see my eyes behind my sunglasses, he would have known how extremely pissed off I was about the lack of aid stations
Right.
on the course. I was so upset, and I don't think I even said anything. I knew if I said something, it was just going to come off the wrong way, so I just kept silent.
Hmm.
And I got my water, I got an apple juice or something, and I got out of there, and I was like, all right, I only got like 15 miles to go. I just got to go as fast as possible, and hope Derek missed the aid stations like I did, which
Hmm.
I don't think he missed any of them. Every aid station that I missed, I think they were there for him for some reason. And
Oh
so I
man.
got into the town. I finished the event. Jim was actually there to greet me, and logged in my time, and he was super excited, having me break the course record by like 20 minutes or something like that. And which is partially the reason why I missed the aid stations, because I just didn't expect somebody to be there so fast.
Makes
that first
sense.
town, the person didn't think that they would need to wave me down. They thought I would just know what they looked like.
Hmm.
The water stop at the intersection. Apparently, that guy doesn't necessarily get there for the first couple of racers. He's more there for, the people stuck in the heat of later in the day.
Right.
And then, the people in the small town behind the elementary school, they just really weren't expecting anybody to be there that early. So they hadn't really put much of a
Mm.
presence out front by the road. And, that
Right.
van getting there right at the last second for the last aid station, he just wasn't expecting anybody to be there that soon. It was just like, oh man, this is such a cluster.
Yeah.
So finished the race, took a shower, and I was kind of like bummed because I felt like there was no way that I was able to accomplish what I wanted to do, which was, beat Derek by 30 minutes
Right. Right.
and take the overall. But
Uh-huh.
so I was kind of down in the dumps, took my shower, whatever, went
Mm.
back there because I think Jim told me he was going to order some pizzas, and went back
Mm.
there to hang out with Jim. And I'm like, so how long ago did Derek came in? He came in like 6 minutes ago. And I kind of like did the math in my head. I was like, I think I missed it by like 4 minutes.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I came in second place. And
Yeah.
I actually left the event thinking that I finished second. It
Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't until, I think it wasn't until Jim had emailed me or it wasn't until Jim had posted the results like the next day
Yeah.
that I saw that I had actually beat him by like 20 something minutes, which gave me the overall, if you combine the three stage races,
Uh-huh.
by I think I ended up winning it by like 6 or 8 minutes, which is pretty
Wow. That's an
crazy when you
margin.
consider that's over 30 hours of racing.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And
What a tight race.
so that was pretty cool. So Jim was super ecstatic about that. Everybody was really happy.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was writing race reports for
Mm-hmm.
most of the events. The only one I didn't write a race report for was the Devil Mountain Double,
Mm.
just because I never got around to it. I'm really crappy at writing race reports. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, everybody says I write really good ones. I'm just really lazy about it.
Right. Right.
And so I wrote the race report during the following week. And I remember, I think even before the following weekend, who's the overall director of the Triple Crown series?
Chuck Bremmel.
Yeah, Chuck. So I
Uh-huh.
remember Chuck sending out an email, and so I was pretty stoked on the whole accomplishment of being the first recumbent rider to ever finish the
Mm.
Triple Crown stage race, because nobody's actually done that before on a recumbent.
Mm-hmm.
People have done single stages, but nobody's ever done all three of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pretty cool to be able to win the overall. And then I remember getting the email congratulating all the racers who completed all of the Triple Crowns, all the racers who podiumed in the divisions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of went on to talk about how it was brought up to his attention that the that it might not be fair to have a recumbent in the overall class. So
Mm.
I was going to be reclassified in my own division, and Derek would be reinstated as the overall winner of the men's division. And I thought to myself,
Interesting.
well, that's kind of like not fair. You're changing the rules after the race. You're not supposed to be able to do that. I could understand
Yeah.
them making those changes, for the following year, but
Right.
you can't do that, for the same event after it's already happened. And
Mm.
so, I had to state in my race report, I kind of ended the race report, I had to kind of apologize to the people who had been following it, because a lot of people had been
Uh-huh.
following the goings ons of the race, because they all wanted me to be able to to brag about taking that overall. They all wanted to see that accomplishment.
Mm.
And even though I did win overall, I kind of put a clause at the end of my race report saying, I just want to thank everybody. Unfortunately, we weren't given the overall men's category. We were reclassified in the recumbent category,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna be what it is, from now on, apparently. And it just like it was kind of like, I didn't really care myself, because I did what I came out to do, and it's the experience that I'm going for, not the trophy or the plaque. And so I did that, and it really didn't. Apparently, the changing of the rules did not sit well with the ultra community in general. Not even just the recumbent community, just the overall community
Mm-hmm.
of the Triple Crown series. A lot of people were not happy with that. And a lot of people shared those feelings with Chuck, via email during the following couple weeks
Hmm.
between the final result and the award ceremony.
Hmm.
And Chuck ended up sending out another email retracting his decision to reclassify me in a separate division after the fact and put the
Oh,
rules
no
back
kidding.
to the original state of affairs. So I believe I was reclassified as the men's overall winner. I do not believe I ever got a plaque for that. I don't think they ever remade
Oh,
the plaques. I think
uh-huh.
honestly, I think Derek actually uh, still got the men's overall plaque. It was just announced that I was the overall one. I don't remember how it went. Um, I'm not the type of person who keeps trophies or plaques around.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
my mom usually keeps hold of like the really important ones, and she keeps them in her collection of things to remember us by.
Right.
But I don't personally keep any of that stuff.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, so it's
Wow.
kind of one of those things. One of the things that Cruise Bike as a company is out there to try to promote and prevent in the future is what they call bikeism, and it's
Hmm.
kind of like racism against bikes. You
Hmm.
know, because there is a lot of it, and you've seen it, personally through you. You've seen it happen to me, like on the noon rides with the lab.
Yeah.
Just by showing up on a different bike, a lot of people have a lot of prejudice towards you just because you're on something different from what they are.
Hmm.
Whether or not they think it's an advantage or not, just because it's different, they fear it. They don't like it.
Hmm.
They let you know straight up front that they're not happy with you.
Hmm.
And yeah, honestly, I just don't see any reason for it. You're
Hmm.
getting another person out there. It doesn't matter if they're faster or slower than you or different than you. It's another
Hmm.
person to share the experience with. And
Right.
although I can't understand their point of view, I've had to experience it on multiple occasions.
Hmm.
And Chuck changing the results after the fact was probably not his own decision. It was probably brought on by a few select people
Right.
expressing their concerns, and
Hmm.
him taking their taking taking in their concerns without considering the fairness to the community as a whole. And it was just interesting to have to have gone through those changes of the rule, and then it was nice to be able to have them revised back to the original state, showing that at least with a little bit of pressure, that the
Hmm.
integrity of the sport can still be maintained.
Yeah. Well, Jason, definitely sounds like you had an incredible and tumultuous adventure to start off your double century career on the road. And I'm really glad you were able to share all of that. I think just for history's sake, for everyone to be able to hear about that story. Well, that was a really great conversation, Jason. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, everyone else, for tuning into this episode. I know there was a lot there, a lot to digest, and a lot to improve our own cycling. So we look forward to being able to see you on the next episode. Until then, keep spinning ultra, and we'll see you out there on the roads. And that concludes our 3-part series covering Jason Perez's 2016 California Triple Crown Series stage race victory. I hope you enjoyed all 3 episodes. If you haven't seen the others, you'll definitely want to check them out. We covered the Devil Mountain Double Century, the Central Coast Double Century, and of course, the White Mountain Double Century. Stay inspired, keep safe out there, and until next time, keep spinning ultra.